Okay, everybody. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate your demographic data. So this is the data you're going to include in your participant section, which falls in your method section. So for your method section, you made up numbers. You put in X instead of an actual number for your participants. This time, I actually do want you to include the actual numbers for your participant section when you do your presentation, right? So when you're presenting your findings at the end of the class, you're going to submit a video. And in that video, in that presentation, I want you to make sure you review your participants' demographics and the breakdown, right? You're describing your participants and who was in your study. Now, as I mentioned before, the only thing that might be difficult for you to do is ethnicity, because you are going to have to do the coding for that one. Now, again, I'm fine with you all working on that together. You all can figure out how to split up the work. But for those of you using ethnicity as an IV, you do have to create that second variable. Where is it? That's separate from the ethnicity variable you're going to use for your demographics. Actually, no, this is it, right? So if you have ethnicity as an IV, you need a separate IV, a separate variable that only has coded the two ethnicities you're going to look at. Whereas this one is when you're all going to do, that's going to look at the ethnic breakdown of the participants in the sample, right? So keep that in mind. Now, when you're writing that section up, also, it's fine for you to say that you used not all participants were included in your analysis because you focus only on Black and Asian participants, for example. So anyways, let's go ahead and do this. So analyze, and then you want to go to frequencies. So click on analyze, descriptives or descriptive statistics, then frequencies. Now you're going to move over let me bring up my notes. There you go. So what I want you to include is the sex of your participants, ethnicity, so that one you have to code, and then I want you to include how many were university students, transfer students, and first and second generation students, and that kind of information, right? So you need to include those variables in your analysis and age. I've decided not to have you include the major of the participants for those who are students, just because it would take too long to do that in addition to ethnicity, and I care about ethnicity more than I do about the major of the student. So here I'm going to include whether they were a transfer student, college, sex, coded. For those of you who did the mindset variable, you do want to, I would say, include this so you could get an idea of how many participants, let me just include it, were in the growth mindset situation versus a fixed mindset situation. If you did the gamer one, include that. What is, well, actually, no, that one is fine. You'll get that count later. What is your sex? What is your age? Now I want to make sure. Now the only thing that, oh, you can, good. So that's the wrong one. I'm looking for sex coded. Okay, I already have that. So I have transfer. Okay, so I have growth, sex coded, college generation, transfer student. Don't need the gender IV one. And I believe that's it. Let me double check. Actually, ethnicity coded. So actually, keep in mind, I haven't done this yet, but you are going to get to do this. But I've included it here just so you can see what it's going to look like. It's going to have an issue because we haven't done this yet. I'm going to click on OK. And you'll see that each table has a name of the variable, transfer student coded, and it says non-transfer student for that first line, and then how many of our participants were non-transfers but were students, right? So these are people who were students. Let me make sure. Yeah, these are people who were students but did not transfer in, meaning they started as from freshman year. And I would just report this. 17.6% of the students were transfer students. And do this again just to make sure the stats you have match the actual data file I'm going to give you. I might update it after a few students email me their missing data. College generation, first gen, not first gen, and actually have a third category called no college. So report all three. 33% of our participants were first generation students, 54.6% were second generation or later, or you could just say not first generation students, but that sounds kind of funky. And 11.4% of our participants had no college experience. And then here you have sex of the participants, 42% male, 57% female. That number might, let's see, for your stats, use a valid percent. These percents won't add up to 100% because there might be somebody who's missing. Here you see is missing 7, right? So here too, I would use these numbers instead of these numbers because these take out the people who did not answer. This one too. Right, so there's a drastic difference, right? When you look at this percent compared to this percent, you know, I think you could hedge it by saying of the participants who responded, 76.6%, or actually I would start out with this number, 23.4% said they were transfer students. And then here you have, so I went over sex, here use a valid percent. Here, oh, okay, it was a nice breakdown. So 315 of our participants were in the fixed mindset condition, whereas 385 were in our growth mindset condition. So keep in mind, this here, only the people doing the mindset study should report this one. Everything else I've covered, everyone should cover in their participant section. And again, report it in your participant section for your presentation, but then also, if you resubmit your method section, make sure you update your numbers. Okay, so this is kind of funny how it reports this, right? So it looks at each age, right? Okay, so here we got some people we shouldn't have had. So be careful with that in the future. We want to make sure we don't have anybody who's under 18. Luckily, it's only 4 out of the 700. I don't know how that happened. Hopefully that was a mistake. So, but here you have like the age and how many people were in that age range. You actually don't want this. You want an average. So let's see. Let me think about that for a second. There should be an easier way to report the average. Here we have ethnicity coded. These are based only on the ethnic groups I coded so far, meaning, as you can see here, 685, 97.9% were not included because I didn't finish coding. So your data should include everybody that you've coded, right? All the participants should be coded, unless they didn't share ethnicity or nationality. Then leave those blank. But here it'll give you the breakdown based on those people that did respond for each ethnic group. So report that, right? We had 40% Black participants. We had 33.3% Latinx, we had 13.3% Asian, 6.7% white. And this is what happens when you don't tell SPSS what those numbers mean. You get those numbers instead of a label. If you had 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 throughout all the categories, you're going to lose track of what the numbers mean. So do yourself a favor, code these values for ethnicity to make it easier for you. Okay, so you're going to report all this. Let's look at getting the average for age. Descriptives. Now let me look for the age variable. Here you go. So keep in mind it has that little ruler icon. It actually means something else, but I'm going to go into that. Mean. Good. Okay. Yeah, better. So the mean age was 26.28. Here you can see it says, what is your age? So the way I did that again, for the first part, I went to analyze descriptive statistics and frequencies. But for that last one, for age, I went to descriptives to get the mean for age. When you're doing this, make sure you go into options, and all you really need is the mean, so make sure you click on that. I'm fine if you don't report the standard deviation for this. Okay, so that's how you get the descriptive statistics for your method section that you will actually report within the participants section. So keep that in mind. You're reporting all of this. The only exception is for, where is it? I'm looking for the mindset variable. There it is. The mindset variable, only the people who are doing the mindset study, you report that. For the people who are doing an ethnic comparison, include your numbers too for how many people in each ethnic group, and you could do the same thing. Do analyze descriptive and frequencies. Now keep in mind I haven't done this because you need to do it based on what two groups you're comparing, but add that here and include the counts. So if you're comparing Armenian to white, or you decide to go with Arabic and white. No, I don't think so. Armenian wouldn't fall under Arabic, right? So maybe Middle Eastern or Eastern European, right? So that's something you're gonna have to decide on your own. But then you would move those over here, and you would get the counts for the two groups you decided on. And if you decide on doing another gender comparison that's not male, female, or that's not sex, right? You would include that so you can get the numbers, right? That way you know, well, we had 150 Armenian participants and 300 white participants. That's fine. So as long as you have, I would say, more than 50 per category, you're fine with running the analysis. If you have less than 50 Armenian participants, for example, then I would broaden that category. All right, we're done.